Hey everyone, welcome back to AWS On Air. We are live here in Anaheim, California for the 2023 AWS Reinforce Conference. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Jeff Marushak. I am a Senior Solutions Architect on our DoD Air Force team, and we got the band back together. I am joined with my co-host AM, but we're now in the PM, so AM...
All right, I'm going. I'm out.
I didn't warn him. I didn't warn him about that.
He should never have said that. That's terrible. That's in my writer. I'm AM Grabelny. I'm a developer advocate here at AWS for Game Day. We did a bunch of Game Day stuff earlier, but now we're talking with our friends from Security Hub. Let's start introductions, please. Kick it off.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Shachar Hirschberg. I'm a Senior Product Manager in AWS Security Hub, and I help security professionals streamline their security operations.
Hey, so my name's Stuart Gregg. I'm a security solution architect. So I help our customers with security operations and instant response. So really excited to be here today.
Great. As throughout yesterday and today, I've done a lot of sessions. We've had a session about Amazon Detective. And so when I ask about that, I always bring up, hey, compare this and that, this service and that service. And as a solutions architect, I'm sure you've done this as well. We go through kind of the AWS 101. Here are the general, most popular security services, and we talk about guard duty, inspector, et cetera, et cetera. So when I talked to all those people today, Security Hub was mentioned. And so now we're finally getting to talk about Security Hub. So let's start there. Tell our viewers exactly what Security Hub is.
Sounds great. Excited to share it with you. So when customers onboarded to the cloud, what we heard from them is that they want to understand how secure are they in the cloud, right? That's
right.
Job number one. And then what Security Hub does first is check whether all of your cloud resources are properly configured. So it has multiple security standards, starting from our own AWS best practices standard that check, for example, your EC2s and S3 buckets, your DynamoDB tables, whether they're properly configured. Now,
probably a good example of that would be, does an EC2 machine have a security group that maybe has port 22 wide open to quad 0. Like that's not a best practice.
Exactly.
Sometimes something that you would do in dev just to get things working, but but you forget about those settings, and then you move to prod, and then a year ago we had it, but Security Hub will alert us to something like that.
Exactly, and it does it continuously. So the moment a resource pops up, you're automatically alerted. And now the second thing is, you mentioned we have all of these other security services that help customers check against threats and vulnerabilities. And what we heard from customers is that I have all of these different Lego pieces, right? But I need to bring them together someplace because I want a single pane of glass to view it all and understand how am I doing in terms of security across all of my cloud accounts in all of the regions. And Security Hub aggregates the findings from Amazon Guard Duty, Inspector, and over 80 other AWS and third-party vendors into a single place. So you as a customer can just have one place to view it all and improve your security and act on it.
Yeah, that's really important because there's a lot of vulnerabilities, and there's a lot of places those vulnerabilities are coming from, right? It's not just the infrastructure, like we're talking about with the ports open. It's also software, too, right? Software is vulnerable all the time. It will continually be vulnerable, but you have to take action on that, and sometimes it's overwhelming, right? So you need that one place to collect all these things so you can start acting on what to prioritize. Now, does Security Hub address the very common, very deadly in the security world, alert fatigue? And how does it address it, if it does?
Yeah, so some of the challenges that we see when speaking to customers is very much alert fatigue, right?
Yeah.
So it's as you start to scale in the cloud, how do you manage that alert fatigue? And essentially, what is that alert fatigue? So when you are operating and remediating them alerts and them findings and doing them repetitive tasks, alert fatigue is something that can definitely be top of mind for customers, right? So, and essentially when you are looking at these alerts, acting them day by day, humans can make mistakes. So when you are looking at that, that is something that can potentially happen.
I feel called out by that. And you looked right at me when you said it. I know. No, I make common, typical, constant mistakes myself. So yeah, you're right.
And production environments, so when you are looking at some of these alerts and dealing with some of these alerts in some of them high-valued production environments, it can be stressful. So all these factors together is what we're seeing as some of the challenges across the industry, for sure.
Yes, and what we did in Security Hub, we heard from customers that they have all this sheer amount of volume of alerts, and they want to take actions on it, right? They want to reduce their risk in the cloud.
Right.
Right now, today in Security Hub, we already have some mechanisms to do it. So we have integrations with popular ticketing systems like Jira and ServiceNow, and we also have integrations with some messaging and communication products like Slack and some other popular examples.
That's like on the remediation side, right? Like once you're ready to take action, right?
Exactly.
Cut some tickets for it. Great.
Exactly. But then what customers also ask us was, I want to, even before I get to take action, I want to fine-tune things, right? I can't open thousands of tickets to my team because, when you have 1,000 tickets, it's like you have 0 tickets because no one's going to take a look at that.
I had a manager who always used to say, if everything's on fire, nothing's on fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which to me, kind of counterintuitive. If everything's on fire, everything's on fire. But I get what he means. But right, like he meant, you can't prioritize everything, right?
Exactly. So what we launched just yesterday is a new feature called automation rules. And automation rules allows you, as a customer, to centrally create these rules that automatically update findings across all of your accounts and regions from a central location. And these findings can now be calibrated, right? So you can either elevate the severity, and we'll show in a moment I believe, it's a cool demo, and then we'll see examples to what we do with it, but you can elevate the severity of findings or suppress them. So that really allows you to better calibrate the amount of findings that the teams, the operators that eventually will take actions on these findings will actually handle. So if we can switch to the screen, we can now see.
Sure.
Demo time, everybody's favorite time.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear some examples because immediately I would think, okay, maybe there's an alert for port 22. So let's automate closing, taking that rule out of that security group. Or you'd mentioned an S3 bucket. There's alert for all of a sudden now this S3 bucket is public. That's against best practice. So let's automate turning off that public access. Those are kind of like very easy to understand examples, but I'm sure there's probably more out-of-the-box thinking automation that I'm excited to hear about.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, look, from the developer side, right? I'm going to buy you some time while you're getting back into your AWS account. On the developer side, right? Like this comes in the form of libraries and packages that you're using. So like I'm a JavaScript developer amongst many other languages, but you start using packages from a third-party repository, there are going to be vulnerabilities, and some of them you have to address immediately. Some are incredibly difficult or put you in a very bad state. Some of them you can ignore for a while and get to them later. It's very hard to figure out because you're getting so many of these notifications.
That's why me and you work well together, because I'm the infrastructure guy and you're the developer guy. So you're getting both sides of this, and I appreciate it. Yeah.
Always, man.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. We're back in business.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Great. So what you see here now is the new screen that we just released, a new feature. You can see we now have an automation tab in Security Hub. And here you can see the different rules that are currently in my account. And you guys just mentioned some great examples. And what we created, as you create a new rule, is that we give you some kind of like out-of-the-box templates to help you get started.
Yep, perfect.
So, we see use cases among many customers, and, we have great people like Stuart working in the field and talking with customers and helping them to solve their problems. And what we heard from them is that the two main use cases that they kind of start with as they adopt this feature is either elevating the severity of findings. And to give an example there, not all of your accounts are equal in their importance.
Right.
You have your top production accounts, for example, and you also have some developer accounts. When people kind of like play around, iterate fast, they need to be more nimble, and findings, for example, a software vulnerability that you just mentioned earlier, can be found on both of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, something like Log4j, you're going to want to address that immediately. That was a incredibly vulnerable finding. Also, you got accounts that do specific things too, have specific compliances, that you mitigate in there, and so, maybe you've got your payments workloads all put into one account, right? And so that's going to have different needs than other accounts. That's what you're getting at, right?
Exactly. So
maybe a sandbox account. Maybe you don't need to have everything encrypted. So maybe there's you're not using KMS, and so you might still get an alert for that. But it's a sandbox account, so let's appropriately gauge that finding.
Exactly, and in that case, you could, for example, and maybe we can build it together. You know what?
Yeah.
So I just if I start from a template, it pre-populates, but why not? We're a live demo. Let's kind of work it through.
It's like we're doing a jam. Game day.
Yeah.
Security Hub game day.
That's right. That's right.
So we have the AWS on there.
I love that you put an exclamation mark.
Exactly. And let's say we have a finding from a inspector, for example. We're talking about about software vulnerabilities.
Yep.
And then you can choose the criteria. And you can see here, just scrolling through, that we have dozens of criteria. And that allows you to really calibrate exactly what you want. So you can use a combination such as findings from KMS that relates to my sandbox account. And you could do it by using, for example, the account ID. If it's from account 123, then that's something that is of interest for me. Or you could use resource tags, account tags, things that are more scalable, right? But helps you annotate and indicate the importance of something. And in this case, let's say we start by the product name. So let's look for findings from inspector.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And what we can do in the console is to get a preview, essentially like a dry run, right?
Hey, look at that, port 22.
Exactly.
It's like we planned it.
Almost like we planned it. And in this case, we see we have an inspector finding that relates to port 22 is reachable from an internet gateway. And that gives us the confidence, as we are building the rules, what will match these rules and which types of findings will be affected by it. Now, after we did the preview, we can now choose the action. And we can choose, for example, to elevate the severity to critical. Or another example could be to suppress the finding. If it's like an example of a sandbox account and we have some KMS issue there, but that's fine for now. And that allows us to really calibrate the volume of findings that the security teams and DevOps team down the road face. Because we know it's really important for them to focus on the most relevant and critical risks and not be lost in kind of like a sea of findings.
Yep.
Now, let's say, we chose to elevate this severity. We can also add a note, and we saw customers add notes to give more context to the people that look at the findings down the road, and that's an option for them to say, hey, we have this organizational policy that, if your bucket is unencrypted, it must be at all times. So make sure that when you get that finding, handle it as soon as possible. And this is a place where you as a security team, and these rules can only be created by security admins, then it allows you to connect better with the teams downstream and provide more context to them.
Could we have the note be my favorite Werner quote, dance like nobody's watching, encrypt like everyone is? Have you heard that before? Have you heard Werner say that's?
Oh, of course.
I haven't.
Maybe it was a shirt. I can't remember if he said it or if it was a shirt. Yeah. No, you don't have to actually write it out. You've got things to do.
I thought it was everything breaks all the time, but
That's one of them.
Yeah,
Everything
it's
breaks
funny.
all the time, but dance like nobody's watching and crypt like everyone is. That's my fave.
Nice. You should get a T-shirt like it. You know?
That, Werner has that T-shirt. I can't step on Werner's. That's Werner's
Yeah.
brand.
And we see now that the new rule was created. And what is really important about this feature that I want you all to know is that you can use it via the console like we're doing right now, but you can also use it via our API or CloudFormation as well. So it really gives you the flexibility to use and deploy it in whatever works best with your organizational practices. Now, I want to show you the kind of end result of it. And these rules evaluate any finding that is suggested into Security Hub, whether it's Security Hub findings or Inspector, Guard Duty findings, and any of the other vendors we integrate with. And and then when we look at the finding, and let's say that's a finding I did before, but it will be kind of similar throughout, where in this finding we have an issue with a misconfigured S3 bucket. Pretty common scenario, happens a lot, and is very important because many times we store sensitive data in there. Now, you can see that in this finding we added a note.
Oh,
the rule
yeah.
added a note that it was updated by the automation rules demo. Now, there is another feature. You get 1+1 here. Another feature released a month ago called Finding History. And
like over time.
exactly.
I love it.
You always want to manage the life cycle of your events, right?
Right.
And Finding History gives you this immutable audit trail where you can see all of the changes that happen to a finding. And in this case, you can see that the severity was updated to high. It was changed by the automation rules demo. And then you can even see the automation rule that updated it. And if it wasn't an automation rule, if it was a user, for example, you'll be able to see the user ARN that updated. So you can really gain that visibility on who changes the findings, when, and what exactly changed. Especially important if you're working in teams, right? And then maybe multiple teams are working on multiple people are working on the same thing. And I hope this will work because we haven't done the full cycle together. Oh, awesome. So when you click on it, it actually takes you to the rule that changed it. So you can easily navigate, pivot, see what happened, see what changed, and really manage your findings at scale and ensure that the overall volume of alerts is reduced, but also that you really fine-tune and focus on the most important ones to reduce your cloud risk.
Yeah, I mean, you always want the receipts. You may take it for granted in the moment, but when you're doing investigations later on and you need to know, well, wait, when did this become vulnerable? When did we address it? When did we even do anything? That history log is amazing. I hadn't seen that yet, so I'm really excited to see that in there. Very cool. What do you think, Jeff?
well, it's just nice to see how it's this is answering a lot of questions about how do we handle security from so many different things. Security Hub is that single pane of glass that brings all these services that we've been talking about, but now it just adds another dimension to it. Let's automate it and let's mold it to meet our organization's needs as appropriate. And every organization's different. Every security team is going to have different requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So this is helping out a lot.
Stuart, what are you seeing as you work with customers? What are you seeing in terms of, how are they taking advantage of automation? It's critical at this point because there's so many things coming through the pipe.
For sure, and there's so much flexibility in automation rules, and I'm really excited to see how customers start to put this into their operational workflows and start to automate some of the findings, some of the pressure rules. So it's going to be really interesting, and I'm really excited to work with some of the customers, build out some of the use cases, and see how they can really take advantage of this new capability.
I always love to ask too, like there's a philosophical difference between being proactive and reactive in a security setting too. Yeah. Do you see this as helping with the proactive side
100%,
Yeah.
exactly. So this is going to really allow your analysts and whoever's doing them operational flows to really get ahead of that alert fatigue and start to focus on more of the interesting investigations. So this is going to be great.
All right.
All right.
We got to wrap.
Yeah, we have one more session with AWS On Air here live in Anaheim, California for Reinforce 2023. We can see some people actually starting to tear down, but we are still here.
We remain.
In fact, our video crew is actually tearing down some stuff, but we are still here. So everyone, stay tuned. We have a few more segments. Thank you to our guests. Very interesting
Thank
stuff
you
about
so much.
Security Hub. We'll be back right after this.